Now, councillors in the City of Glasgow have passed a motion proposing major changes to a stretch of the M8 running through the city centre. They include introducing yet-to-be-confirmed speed restrictions. The Green Party wants a 30 miles per hour limit put on part of the motorway. The council's SNP convener for transport gave us his thoughts.
So we're looking for engagement with the Scottish Government around really short, medium and especially longer term potential actions that could be taken forward to reduce the impacts of the M8 on the city centre. As part of that, we are really looking for a conversation around how we improve air quality, how we reduce noise pollution, and also in the longer term, how we can potentially transform that stretch of road and transform that stretch of the M8 into something that's much more suitable for a city centre urban environment, because I think everyone recognises that if we were designing a transport network and a transport system for Glasgow today, it's very unlikely that a major motorway would be ploughed right through the middle of a city centre.
So how radical should the proposals be to the way Scotland's biggest motorway operates? We brought together the Green Party Glasgow City councillor, Christy Mearns, and the Conservatives MSP and party's transport spokesperson, Graham Simpson. Christy, so this motion has been passed by Glasgow City Council to test having a lower speed limit on part of the M8 going through Glasgow. What speed do you want it restricted to?
Well, I would just say that, first of all, a 30 mile per hour or a lower speed limit is just one of the proposals being put forward as part of this motion. Really, this is about looking at what we could do with the M8, how we could make it better so that it better serves people, improves health and well-being, and it does not impose itself quite as much on Glasgow specifically. A lower speed limit is just one way that, for example, significant levels of noise pollution and, of course, poor air quality could be addressed. But there's a wider, longer-term picture to this as well, which we hope to be prioritised and focused on going forward.
And so what is the wider objective then? Is it to create healthier neighbourhoods, as I think it's been described, Christy?
Yes, of course, that is one of the main things that we think could be achieved by looking at this. We haven't actually looked at this in detail, what could be done. We know that there are cities around the world who have managed to look at their urban motorways, decide that they weren't really fit for the present and for the future, and have created something much better, which is healthier for people, addresses some of the most pressing issues of our time, such as the climate crisis, really helps to lower car kilometres, for example, and makes our city nicer and better for all.
Graham, Glasgow's the only city, as far as I know, with a motorway running right through it. Does it not make sense to do this?
I think you're right. It is the only city with a motorway running through it, but the fact is, it's there. We can't get rid of it. I was a bit confused by the motion that was put to Glasgow City Council, of which I'm not a member, obviously. It's not really clear, and Christy's virtually admitted it, what the councillors who voted for this are actually looking for, apart from lowering the speed limit. Well, anyone who's driven along the M8 and gone across the Kingston Bridge will know that speeds are pretty slow anyway, a lot of the time. So I'm not quite clear what they hope to achieve. I think if the councillors had discussed wider things like improving public transport, we have a blueprint for a Clyde metro system, which sounds pretty exciting. If we see some details that would connect to places like East Kilbride, where I live, that's the sort of thing that we need, is actually getting people onto public transport and out of their cars.
Graham, before I bring Christy back in, would you oppose this 30 mile an hour limit then?
I'm just not sure what it's meant to achieve. The issue on the M8 is the amount of traffic on the M8. It's not speeds. That's what needs to be addressed.
Let's put that to Christy then. The traffic already goes pretty slowly through that section of the M8. So what's the purpose of this? It's not going to get cars off the road, Christy.
Well, at times it does go very slowly, but if Graham or anybody else had ever spent a good proportion of time in these communities that do border the M8 in Glasgow, he would understand why it's important to look at all options to reduce its impact. I think some studies have shown that the noise levels can be as bad as a plane taking off, for example, and airport noise. And for people living on the edge of that are experiencing that every day, it has a significant impact on health, not to mention air quality. Children playing in schools on the motorway's edge, many communities and many more homes potentially in the pipeline to be built around about the edges of the motorway. A lower speed limit, so it's no fixed plan or proposal for a 30-mile-per-hour speed limit. It's a request and it's a plea to please Transport Scotland and the Scottish Government to explore whether there's an opportunity to have a lower speed limit to address one of those issues. There are many issues caused by the M8 in Glasgow, and noise and air pollution is just one of those which could be addressed via a lower or a variable speed limit. There are other countries, other cities in the world that have had a lot of good success from looking at a variable speed limit. So where there is pockets of congestion, maybe that speed limit goes up and then it comes back.
So at least it's attempting to tackle the problem, Graham. And don't you agree that something needs to be done? It's very congested. We have these net zero targets to try and meet. We need to start somewhere.
So we need to think big. And I go back to what I said earlier about improving public transport. I mean, this is the key. If you improve public transport, then you might get some of the traffic that's on the M8. And other motorways off, but you're not going to eradicate it because people do need to move about. But just bear in mind that the M8 is a through route. It takes people from beyond Glasgow, through Glasgow, and out into other areas, and people need to travel about. So if people like Christy are suggesting, I'm not quite clear what they're suggesting, but if they're suggesting that we get rid of the M8 and create some nice boulevard, then where's that traffic going to go?
Well, let's put that to Christy. Is that not the kind of long-term vision to have this boulevard and get rid of the M8 altogether? Where would the traffic go?
Yeah, I think Glasgow deserves and really needs to be aiming high, but no one's suggesting that we're going to close the M8 tomorrow or indeed that we can do that. What we're saying is we need to look at the possibilities and we can't waste any more time not doing that. That's going to be a long piece of work in itself. And so we really can't be wasting any more time. And we also, of course, never brought this motion in isolation. We've always been very clear from the outset that we have to improve public transport. And of course, that must go alongside any efforts or plans to make driving more difficult. We have to have that good quality public transport system in place to really encourage more modal shift and to really meet that sustainable objectives and lowering car kilometres. But at the same time, we have to be looking at how easy it currently is to drive into and through Glasgow and the real imposition and impact that has on many people living around.
Yeah, Graham, so they are going to be looking at it in concert with improving public transport.
Well, great. Well, let's see these plans for improving public transport, because all I've seen is some squiggles on a map so far, and that's not good enough. The other aspect of the motion was about the low emission zone, which is coming into Glasgow this year, in fact. And of course, there's been a big outcry from people in the taxi trade about that. They've been asking for extra time. The impact of that by introducing it this year and not waiting another year like other cities are doing is that we're just going to drive taxis off the road. Okay. That's going to be bad for women. It's going to be bad for disabled people, school children.
And that is an issue for another day. But thank you both very much indeed for joining us this evening.